Hello, license holders. Wishing you a happy new year from our main office in Chicago. Welcome to the One License February webinar, intentionally designed for our new users and for those who need a refresher course. I'm very, very happy to have you here. My name is Brenna Cronin. I'm the General Manager of One License. It looks like we have almost 100 folks that are joining us live this afternoon. So a very warm welcome to each and every one of you. But also a special welcome to those who are watching this webinar after the recording, especially our users in Europe, Australia, and New Zealand who couldn't join us during this specific time zone. While I wish that there was one time zone where we could all participate at once, we have technology that can help us be able to reach everybody as much as we can. So regardless of whether you're watching now or watching later, thank you for all that you do for your ministries. It is our honor to partner with you in congregational song. So a few notes here. The webinar will run no longer than 1 hour in length. It all depends on that Q&A portion that we have at the end. If it ends sooner, maybe around 45 minutes, then great. If not, we do have a full hour scheduled. In the coming days, the webinar will be posted to our blog, which is news.onelicense.net. I want to draw your attention to that if you've never been there before. Just put the word news, N-E-W-S, in front of our web address, onelicense.net. So there you can rewatch this exact video and also share it with your teams in case they couldn't join you today. The third thing is that this webinar only requires the use of your speakers or headphones. So there's no need to have a microphone or a video camera since you're an audience member. Before we watch our overview video, I invite you to get out a piece of paper and pen so you're able to take some notes throughout our session. So while I pull up our video, go ahead and get that pen and paper or whatever else, your iPad that you think you may need, so that way you can jot down those notes for later on. One License. Download, create, report. Once you're a subscriber, you'll have access to thousands of downloadable music image files from our catalog of member publishers, and our outstanding database will help you make sure the song or text you're looking for is covered. Creating worship aids, bulletins, and projections has never been easier. Search for your song and download high-resolution music image files, all in one place. By taking advantage of the most up-to-date technology, our website makes it easy to report the titles you use. This ensures authors, composers, and publishers receive fair compensation. Music directors, pastors, and their teams can report song usage 12 weeks in the past and 6 weeks into the future. And our convenient list feature allows you to store frequently used titles for future access, or to download your entire list of songs at the click of a button. One License offers annual, event, and single-use reprint licenses. Annual licenses are the economical choice for those who reprint or project music on a regular basis. Event licenses are great for retreats, conferences, and conventions that are up to 1 week in length. And single-use licenses are perfect for a wedding, funeral, or other one-time event. In addition to congregational reprint licenses, One License offers a podcast streaming license for churches to stay connected to their many members, and a practice track license for music directors to share recordings with choir members and instrumentalists to help them learn their music. The One License customer service team is here to help. Our intelligent ticketing system and phone support ensure that your questions are promptly addressed. Email us at info@onelicense.net or call us at 1-800-663-1501. We believe in the power of music to connect and inspire communities. One License allows congregations to make the most of our member publishers' music, providing access to the finest music for the worshiping assembly. Whether you're using our service on an annual or a one-time basis, we're proud to offer our support. One License, inspiring congregational song. So thank you for watching that with us. If you are just joining us, thank you to the One License February webinar. Our numbers continue to increase as we get going here. My name is Brenna Cronin. I'm the General Manager of One License, so thank you so much for being here. Our webinar today will be divided into 4 parts. The first is an external overview of the website. The second is an internal overview, which will be accessible for our current license holders. I know that there are some of you on our webinar today that don't have licenses yet, so I hope we'll be able to answer all of your questions as well.
The third portion will be more information on special features such as copyright compliance and group licenses. And the fourth section is an extended Q&A session. I'd like to introduce our license holder support agent, Kathy Connolly, who will explain the Q&A process.
Good afternoon, license holders. This is Kathy Connolly, your license holder support agent, and I'll be helping with the Q&A process today. I have the pleasure to speaking to many of you over email through our online ticketing system, and that's exactly how we'll be answering your questions today. There are two ways to submit a question. Number one, the best way to submit a question is through the contact link in the upper right-hand corner after you are already logged into the website. Since you are logged in, our team will be able to see your organization name and license number, allowing us to find your account faster. You can also, number two, email info@onelicense.net, which will submit your question to us. Note that in both of these instances, you must write webinar in the subject or message so we know you're watching us live. Questions will be answered throughout and at the end of the call. Note that if your question is too specific to your organization, we'll respond via email within 1 business day. Our online ticketing system is the best and fastest way to get a hold of the license holder support team.
Thank you so much, Kathy. Folks, I can't tell you how much we have enjoyed partnering with the Zendesk company to have our online ticketing system be so streamlined. So essentially what that means, and some of you are aware of this, when you send us an email to info@onelicense.net if you're in North America, or info.au if you are outside of North America, specifically in Australia and New Zealand, if you send us an email that way, it goes into a ticketing system. So we're able to assign that to our different colleagues in the office. We're allowed to put different comments on there. We can send it back to you with a different status, pending, open, solved, etc. So it really allows us to be transparent with you about where your inquiry is. Some things obviously can be answered right away with no problem, but there are other times where we maybe need to do some more research on your specific issue. So having this ticketing system allows us an incredible amount of organization, but also allows you a lot of transparency about your specific inquiry. So whether it's questions that you have in general, or if you have questions specifically today, again with that subject line webinar, please email us at info@onelicense.net, or if you're logged onto the website, you can click this contact link in the upper right-hand corner, and that way you can send us a message that way as well. So I'd like to move to an overview of the external portion of the website. So this is our homepage, and you'll see that it's quite wide. I have a very large monitor, and I want you to be able to see the different images and stuff that we download later. So that's why it looks a little bit wide. But the concept of One License is that we are primarily a reporting service and then secondarily a downloading service. So what that means is that you are allowed to reprint congregational music, so whether that's text, melody lines, sometimes it's both. You're allowed to download that from our website and then report your usage of that through our website, so that way our congregation can participate in song. So sometimes that looks like a worship aid, sometimes that's a projection screen, a wedding bulletin, a funeral leaflet, things like that. Essentially anywhere that you would be reprinting music, you would be logging onto our website to indicate for royalty and copyright purposes that you've done that, okay? So the purpose of the site is to give you the opportunity to download music. That's certainly a feature of what we do, but the primary purpose of what we do is giving you those abilities to have the copyright reprint permissions and then reporting that service through our website. So you may have heard us say before, we're primarily a reporting service and secondarily a downloading service. And we like to be very transparent about that. Some of our member publishers don't participate in the downloading portion of the website, and they only have their titles there. So if you're ever looking for something and you can't find the download, you're more than welcome to use your own resource, or you can contact that publisher in order to get a copy of it. Note that our service serves congregational music only, so that's music for the people sitting in the pews that are participating as congregational members. So music for instrumentalists, choirs, cantors, etc. is not covered, expressly not covered under our service, and must be purchased directly from the member publisher. So we have a lot of transparency about what we cover and what we don't cover. So whether you have a license or not, you can actually search from this black search music bar, anything that you might be looking for, and you can see what comes up. So in this example, I'm looking for Marty Haugen's version, but if you type in All Are Welcome, you'll see that there are a number of versions available. Since I'm not logged into the website at this specific moment, it's telling me to purchase a license. So that's why that green button is there. I see there's a version by Dakota Road Music. There is Jesse Manabuson's version from OCP. If I scroll down a little bit further, I see Marty Haugen's version from GIA. If you wanted to add in the word Haugen, you'll notice that just like a Google search, it's going to populate those results faster. By clicking on View More Versions, if I am here to download a copy, I can take a look at all of the different versions that might be available to me. So perhaps, and whether or not you use the Catholic Community Hymnal or not, you can use this version. There's also a version from Gather Comprehensive. Sometimes they have, small changes to them. This one, for example, Lead Me, Guide Me, it has a descant on the top for the 5th verse, right? So sometimes the different versions of the songs can look different depending on the version that they're in. But we have transparency about what we cover and what we don't cover. If you're not a license holder, you can view the preview links, right? Everything that I just pulled up, you can view the preview links. However, if you try to download something, it's going to tell you to purchase a license or to log in, all right? PDF and TIFF files are available only to license holders. So that way we can make sure that the intellectual copyright of these specific composers and publishers and authors is protected. So there's a locked version of the website that you only have access to when you are an actual license holder. However, we do have this unlocked version where you have preview images. That way, if you're seeking out whether we cover something or not, you don't have to buy a license and then find out later that we don't cover it. All right. So we're very transparent about what we cover and what we don't cover. That's very, very important to us. One License works in a 3-step process. So download, create, and report. So when you become a member of One License, you'll have the ability to actually download the music files, again, that the member publishers provide. Some of our member publishers do not. You'll also have the ability to listen to sample clips. Some member publishers provide those, some do not, right? Are you getting the theme here? You can also download those music image files to assist in your planning. So while One License is not a planning service, so you're not going to find, like for here example, you can see a copy of a worship aid. You're not going to find any types of tools to help you create a worship aid or, planning, seasonal planning purposes and things like that. However, we do give you the music image files for you to create with them what you will. So because each of you celebrate worship in all kinds of different styles and varieties, we give you the tools. It's almost like we serve the volleyball up and over the net, and then however you catch it or bump it over is totally up to you. All right, I hope that analogy kind of makes sense. If you want to take a look at a guide that we have on how to create worship aids, we did a really, really fantastic session at the NPM convention last year. Christopher Ferrero headed up that session, and he invited us to be a part of it. You can view it at news.onelicense.net. Our 2018 year in review listed this. It's called Creating Beautiful Worship Aids NPM 2018 breakout session. So if you weren't there in person or you want some help on how to actually create worship aids, we made a whole big long video that you can take a look at. Note also that if you search up in the search bar here, let's search the word worship, and you can find it that way too. Creating worship aids. All right. So we'll go back to the home page here. I also want to give you an idea of how else to get to the blog, and that's down here. So not only can you go to news.onelicense.net, but you can also access it from the bottom of the home page. So you'll see that the most recent article that was published was the 2018 year in review, and that's the article that I just had up. All right. Here's a list of some of the select member publishers that we work with. So if you're familiar with folks like Augsburg Fortress, GIA, OCP, World Library, Hope in Oxford, Morningstar, Lit Press, Willow Publishing, these are the folks who are really, really active on our website, maybe for lack of a better word. There's a few different kind of unofficial tiers for how our member publishers participate on the website. So some of them just have their titles up there for you to report. Some of them have their titles up there, and they also have downloadable music image files. And then some of them, and this would be the highest level of member publisher participation, they have their titles available to report, they have their music available for download, and then they have their hymnals linked for searching purposes. So some of you have obviously benefited from that feature. The larger companies have the people power to be able to do that. So that's part of the reason why there's different varying levels of participation. All right. Not good, not bad, not anything otherwise, just what they're actually able to contribute to us on the website. Also, towards the footer, you'll see an FAQ page, you'll see an About Us page, and then also the link back to that contact page. The About Us section just gives you a letter from me, kind of explaining the concept of what we do. You're more than welcome to direct your pastors or other folks in leadership that have questions to this page. That might be a really good one for them. And then also under the How It Works tab, that video that we showed you right in the beginning, that may be helpful for them too, just to have a general understanding of what it is that we actually do. From the How It Works page, you'll also see some bullet point understandings of the different types of licenses that we offer. So the podcast streaming license, the practice track license, the concept of reporting titles, and then there's also tutorial videos. So these tutorial videos are maybe 2 to 3 minutes long. You can also find them because everything we publish is also on our blog. If you search in the upper right-hand corner and type in the word tutorial, you can see everything pop up of a tutorial that we've ever done. I also recommend that you search the word webinar as well. So that'll pull up things like the podcast streaming webinar. We had an unbelievable number of people participate in that one, which was really fantastic. We do at times do specific webinars for different regions of the world because there are little differences. And then we also have different tutorial videos and things that can be found here. So really any buzzword that you're looking for, type it in this upper right-hand corner in the search bar, and you'll be able to find what you need if you have questions. I'll direct you towards the member publisher page as well while we're still on the exterior of the website, so we're not logged in. If you're not a license holder, you can view all of this. This is all transparent upfront information. Our member publisher page is searchable. So if I type in OCP, you'll see that they come up. If I type in Spirit and Song, you'll see that they also come up, right? So these are all of the copyrights that are under those specific publishers. If I type in the word Tizay, not only is the actual community of Tizay a member publisher, but then also the North American administration of that through GIA publications. If I type in WLP, it'll also come up as World Library Publications as well. So it's a pretty smart page. If you want contact information for any of our publishers, some of them are listed here. You can just hover over the blue and then it'll take you to their website. It also, and this is really important, shows who participates in the different licenses. So 99% of our member publishers participate in the practice track and the podcast streaming licenses. So those licenses are add-ons to the annual license. The annual license is that general copyright reprint license that you have for all 365 days. And then the podcast streaming allows you to put your services up on your church website or Facebook or YouTube. There's a certain number of views that are limited there. Now, the practice track license allows you to use rehearsal tracks, essentially, whether you play those out yourself or whether you download a copy of a master recording from iTunes or something, and then you make copies of it. Essentially, that license allows you to be able to do that. We'll cover all those a little bit more later. But that's a general understanding of the member publisher page, so you can type in the name of a publisher and see if they're covered. The options and prices page lists out all of the current pricing. You'll notice that my drop down here is the United States. If you happen to be in Canada, go ahead and switch your drop down and then you can take a look at that there. And of course, if you're watching this later and if you're living in a different region, you're more than welcome to drop that down as well and look at your different pricing. You'll see that the podcast streaming license is added onto the annual license, so you can see your pricing there. In terms of average weekly attendance, we like to think of that number as the average weekly attendance over your entire year. So if there's anyone who's going to know this number, it's going to be someone like a bookkeeper or a CFO or a treasurer. The amount of tithing that your church participates in and the number of people that are actually there is a really, really important number for those folks. So you can usually go to them if you don't have an idea of what that number is. The average weekly attendance we think about over the course of a year, because we know that the numbers go up around Triduum and around Christmas. We know that they may go down in the summer. You may have college students or snowbirds or other fluctuations. But in terms of the average weekly attendance, you would take all of what you have, look at it over the course of the whole year, and then find your average, okay? We have these ranges here so that way you're not super nervous if you're at 701 people, right? If we're looking at this category E, for example, we don't want you getting nervous at 701 people because you know what probably happened. You had 400 another week, so everything is going to be okay. But if you're consistently over that 700 mark or over, this is just one example. If you're consistently over that number, that's when you're going to want to reevaluate your license category. They're priced equitably. That's very important to us. So that way each church is paying the appropriate amount for their individual number of people that attend, okay? We want everyone to be able to have access to this website and to the music that we offer to benefit their ministries. So that transparent pricing also is very important to us. You can also read more about how the different licenses work over here on the left-hand side. We have school licenses as well. So these are folks like universities, parochial schools. Sometimes it can be other organizations too that work in an educational capacity. Just send us an email and we're happy to talk to you about that. But because there's a general understanding that those services are happening either once a month or quarterly or something like that, the services are fewer, the cost is fewer because there's that general understanding. For those of you that don't have licenses yet, but you want to try it out, you can use a single use or an event license. Single use is for a 24-hour period, and an event license for something more like a week long, like a mission trip or a convention or a retreat or something like that. If it's over 24 hours, so if you're doing like a 3-day retreat, you're going to look at an event license. Okay, so less than 24 hours is a single use license. We also, just as of a couple of months ago, we're very, very excited about this, but we've launched the ability to have podcast and streaming on top of your single-use and event licenses. So some of you have been very, very excited about this idea. Yes, you can podcast stream your convention. Yes, you can podcast stream a service from your mission trip. Yes, you can podcast stream a wedding. Or if it's of interest, and it may be for some of you, you can podcast stream a funeral service. So if you have that specific license coverage and you have people that can't attend for whatever reason, this is a really, really fantastic option, and I want you to keep it in mind. I will also mention here that there have been a number of circumstances that brought this idea to fruition. And one of those were all the hurricanes that happened a couple of years ago in Florida and Texas and the whole Gulf of Mexico. So they had people that physically could not get to their church, and they wanted to be able to still minister to them during a time of incredible crisis. So part of that understanding of offering this service is where that idea came from. We want you to be able to reach your people regardless of what the conditions are. So having that podcast streaming license is very important. Additionally, you can use it for evangelization. You can reach it, you can use it to reach folks. You can use it to reach your college students on Facebook. So there's lots of different ways for that. But I do want to point out specifically that it was a really, really great way for people to reach people during the hurricane. So I think that's important. The practice track license, you'll see the pricing down for that as well. I want to be very clear about how we set up the average weekly attendance for that. That is based on, just like your annual license, the average weekly attendance of your congregation. So while you may only have 20 people in your choir, if you have 1,000 people attending your services, you're going to be paying into category F. And that's really important because we want to make sure that all of the churches are paying fairly and equitably for these services. So I just want to send out one last reminder about this contact process here. If you have questions at all, and we're going to get to Kathy to see if there's any in just a moment, but if you have any questions during our time here today, go ahead and click this contact button in the upper right-hand corner. Send us a message. If you're going to send us an email directly, you're more than welcome to do that too, info@onelicense.net. Have the subject line be webinar. That way we can find it and know that you are watching us live. So Kathy, do we have any questions so far?
We sure do. I have Cindy in Dodge City asking to speak to the various member publishers that you've mentioned. Do you have only Catholic songs available, or other denominations as well?
That's a great question. So we serve mainline Protestant and Catholic churches primarily, though our music comes from the entirety of the Christian faith. So those bigger publishers that I mentioned, you may be familiar with all of them and the style of music that they offer, but there's less than 50% of our license holders that are actually Catholic. There's all kinds of Lutheran, Protestant, and everything in between that we cover. So the music isn't necessarily specific to a denomination. It's available for anybody who wants to use it.
Okay, I also have a question from Don in Pittsburgh about lists and adding songs. He wants to know, what's the best way to build a repertoire list that I can use quickly and efficiently in the reporting process? He uses the same things over and over again and would really like to have a streamlined experience when he reports usage.
Okay, perfect. Don, I just made a note on my notes here. When we get to that section, I will absolutely come back to your question. So I'm going to log into the website here. If you ever have issues logging in, please click on that forgot password link and that will send a link to your email. It's just like resetting your password on any other website. Note that you and your specific email address have its own password, all right? So you changing your password isn't going to affect the password of anyone else who may be on your account. So the organizational profile button, so if we click on my account and then my profile, this section lists all of the pertinent information about your organization. You can see your address. You can see the types of licenses that you have. It also gives you all of your license number information. It lists the specific categories that you're in, and it also gives you your license dates. Note that my account is a test account, so don't be too overwhelmed by that 2,999 date right there. Way into the future. Note that you can also view your invoices from this drop-down green button here, so you can click on View Invoice and it will pull up your invoice. You can also, going back to licenses, get a copy of the license terms. So that's really helpful information, all of the fine legal print of the license itself. And then you can also send yourself a copy of the welcome packet. The welcome packet is incredibly important information. So it's going to include the invoice. It's going to include the license terms. There's also a welcome letter from us. There's also a helpful instructions document as well. So that way you can make sure that everybody on your team is on the same page about what's expected. The user accounts tab, you can add an additional user here. You can indicate if they're a billing contact or not. Those people will only get copies of the invoices once a year. That's it. They won't get anything else. Sub-users would be people other than account owners who would have the ability to log in, report their usage, download music, and things like that. Under default settings, this is entirely optional over here on the left-hand side. You can specify a specific hymnal that your organization works with, and then you'll see that those results will float to the top once you're searching. Again, entirely optional. There's no reason why you need to check one, but if you do, those results will populate to the top. An important note about the number of services here. So I would have this number listed as the number of services that are consistent. So let's say, for example, that you have 4 masses on a weekend. 3 of them are going to be identical most of the time, right? You can fine tune this, right? But we're speaking in very general purposes. Let's say 3 of them are pretty much the same. You've got a 4:30 on Saturday and you've got a 9 and an 11 on Sunday. But you have a 5 p.m. service on Sunday night that maybe is more youth focused. Listing the services as 3 for the 3 services that have the music in common will make your life easier because you won't have to report it as many times. So when you report a title, it's going to multiply it by 3. All right. If this was listed here as 4, because in theory you think, oh, well, yeah, I have 4 services every weekend, you're going to have to edit down to 3 the number of songs that aren't being used for that 5 o'clock youth mass. Okay. And that turns into a lot of editing on your behalf. So my recommendation is that you list your default number as the number of services that share music in common. It's going to make your life a little bit easier. In terms of PDF reports, you can download a 12-month reporting history. This is really, really, and I will send a ticket to my IT team about that. It may just be that my account is a test account. That may be the only reason why that isn't working for you. But clicking on this PDF report and this download button, you can download a copy of the 12-month report of your organization. So anything that your organization needs to be able to prove to any type of higher up official about your reporting history, you can do that with this download report. All right. So from there, we're going to take a look at some helpful resources. Again, I explained that welcome packet. If you, for whatever reason, click on the license button and are having issues with that send welcome packet button, just send us an email, info@onelicense.net. We'd be happy to forward you a copy of the welcome packet. Just write a simple message. The subject line can be welcome packet and say, please send me a copy. We're happy to take care of that for you. But also I want to draw you back to that news.onelicense.net section. Anything that you're looking for in terms of tutorial or help resources is going to be found here. So if you click on a specific post, you can also go back into our archives. We've been actively blogging since September of 2016, so there are a lot of options here. Moving to the actual reporting process, you can access that from My Account and then report usage. It's going to be the same idea for reporting tracks as well if you're reporting practice tracks. Typing in the search bar any of the following information: the title, the name of the tune, the SKU number, which I'll explain in a second, or the composer. I already had that initial example of All Are Welcome, so I want to come back to that one for just a moment. The title is All Are Welcome. I can narrow it by composer to have Haugen come up faster. And then there's this gray SKU number that's listed here. So this one says number 00004. If you click on this number, it's going to copy it, and that way you can paste it. Now, the SKU number may be helpful if you want to be very, very specific about instructing someone else on how to report usage for you. So say you have a secretary or a liturgy assistant or an 8th grade student who's getting confirmation service hours, and they are helping you to report. And if you've never considered the idea of an 8th grade confirmation student to help you with reporting, you're welcome. We do that at our parish, and it works out actually really well. A lot of them know how to use computers more than others, so that can be really helpful. Instead of explaining to that individual who's reporting, please report All Are Welcome, and then maybe they're confused, understandably so, right? Oh my goodness, all these different titles that say All Are Welcome. Or maybe even instead of saying report All Are Welcome by Haugen, maybe that's even too confusing to them, or All Are Welcome by GIA, you can tell them report 00004. When you search for that, any SKU number in the system with those 5 numbers is going to come up. So note that other publishers can share the same numbering. It just looks a bit different because of how they've marked their SKUs in their system. So if you want to write All Are Welcome 00004, that's going to make it very, very clear to that person what they should be reporting. Once they click on the green reporting button, they can select the week that it's being used for. So today is February 8th when this webinar is being recorded. So the system will let you go 12 weeks in the past and 6 weeks into the future. So the system will let me go as far back as November 8th, and it'll let me go as forward as March 21st. If you have titles that you're reporting that are before November 8th, please list them for any available week. It's better late than never as far as we're concerned on that. While those reporting and royalty statements may look a bit off or look a little bit strange, or even for your own records, it may look a little bit off and strange if you're reporting, Christmas music, way back here in March or way back here in November. At least it's in there, right? And that's what really matters at the end of the day. Here's where you can edit the number of services. We talked about that. It's automatically going to come up as 3 because in my head, I'm thinking, okay, we're using this song for Saturday afternoon, Sunday morning at 9, and Sunday morning at 11. We're not going to use it at the 5 o'clock service with the youth. So here we are, we're reporting this song for 3 services. If we were using it at the 5 o'clock Sunday night service, we could just edit it to 4. To submit and continue your search, you would click here and it would bring you back to this page that's back here in the gray. To send and view your report, it'll take you to your report usage page for this specific week. So you'll see that so far for the week of November 8th, I've reported All Are Welcome by Marty Haugen with 4 service uses. You don't need to tell us the number of copies that you use because we already know the category of attendance that you're in based on the invoicing category that you're in, okay? So you just need to tell us the number of services that you used a specific song for. In terms of reporting strictness, I want to be very, very clear that we expect 100% compliance from our license holders. That is spelled out in the terms and conditions, and it is also spelled out in the helpful instructions. I will say this from a place of incredible pastoral care. Having relationships with these authors and composers and knowing that this is their livelihood, it's incredibly important that anytime you use a piece of music, that you report your usage of that piece of music. Your one use may not feel like a lot. It may feel very easy for you to skip it for a week. It may feel very easy for you to fall behind by a month or 2. But if you're reprinting music and you're not reporting it, you're using it illegally. And one would argue that that isn't a very just thing to do. So if I can offer my personal plea to you to make a note, make a star, 100% compliance. Because I'm an education forward person, here are my recommendations. Maybe you know that every Monday at noon, you log in and report the usage from the weekend. Maybe you know that every Wednesday, when you're finishing up your worship aid for the weekend and you're already downloading things, that you log in and report them because you're already downloading them. Maybe you make a note to yourself on the first Friday of every month that you're going to log in and report all of your usage. Whatever your system is, whatever your process is, at minimum, it needs to be quarterly that you're logging onto the website. For those of you who are incredibly far behind, I want to sympathize with you for a moment, but get yourself a nice big cup of coffee and sit down and report your usage for the last couple of months, 6 months, a year, whatever it has to happen to be, and get yourself on top of your reporting history. All right? Thank you for your understanding. To browse by different mass settings, you can click on, in the upper left-hand corner, this Browse by Mass Setting button. You'll see all of the revised order of masses for Catholic use are on the left, and then those original mass settings with a lot of Lutheran organizations still use those are on their right-hand side. So if we want to take a look at, let's see, let's do the Mass of Christ the Savior by Dan Schutte. So instead of searching Mass of Christ the Savior Schutte in this upper box here, if I do it by Browse by Mass Setting, it'll pull up every single one of the titles that are in that mass setting, all right? So of course, different times of year, we use different things, but at least you can see that they're all here. So perhaps we use the Gloria, and we use the Gospel Acclamation, we use the Holy, we use the Amen, and the Lamb of God. We can click this left button here, Report All Selected. It's going to list all of the different things that we just reported. We can put it in for that specific week, change the services if necessary, and then send and view our report. Now, I'll note too that a way to kind of multiply if you're far behind, if you have 3 services in a weekend, you can report it for 6, and essentially you'll have reported for 2 straight weeks in a row. All right, so that can save you a little bit of time too. You can see other Lutheran liturgical settings that are listed here. I'll note that our member publisher, Augsburg Fortress, they don't have their Lutheran liturgical settings on our website, so you would need to contact them directly for access to those. But a very popular one, this Holden Evening Prayer, you'll see that under Lutheran liturgical setting or other liturgical setting, clicking on that, and then you can download those. From the downloading perspective, again, if you want to take a look at the preview and see if this is what you're looking for, it's intentionally blurry, so that way we can prevent any type of stealing from the website. You can also download a copy of the PDF or the TIFF. So I'm going to download both of those, and I want us to take a look at them. The PDF, many of you are familiar with this file type. It's very, very popular. You'll see that there's a lot of white space around this image. So you're going to need to crop this if you want to insert it into any type of worship aid or anything like that. The TIFF, which will pop up here in just a second, the TIFF doesn't have any white space to it at all. I personally prefer working with TIFFs because they don't have that white space. I don't have to crop anything. TIFFs are also transparent, so if you need to put them up on like a PowerPoint slide and you want to put a pretty image behind them, or if you want to put a color behind them or something like that, TIFFs are a little bit more malleable. They're also gigantic files. I mean, you see how big this is. It's going to take up a little bit more space on your computer or on your Google Drive or wherever you happen to store those, but it's going to be a lot more accessible than just this PDF is. I'll also mention too that in addition to searching on the left-hand side by title, tune, SKU number, or composer, you can also search by a hymnal. So I'm going to pull up the Gather Third hymnal. And you'll see this piece here, World Library, Paul Tate, By the Waters of Babylon. You could also have searched this by the Waters of Babylon, By the Waters of Babylon Tate, or also by 50141. If the hymnal, and again, I mentioned this as a very high level member publisher participation level here, to have the hymnals linked on the website, you'll see it appear here as well. In terms of downloading and lists, this button right here on the right-hand side, it says plus list. If I wanted to place this song on a list of mine, I would click that, and I can either select a list or I can create a new list. So let's say, for example, I wanted to create a supplemental hymnal with my organization. And if that's something that's of interest to you, please, please, please take a look at the supplemental hymnal blog post. I cannot tell you how many times this has been viewed. It really spells out the process of how to create this supplemental hymnal in a complete 10-step process. So whether that's a folder with brads, whether that's a binder, whatever it happens to be, you're allowed to do it. You just have to do it in a very legal up and up kind of way. So in this scenario, this is my community songbook. I can also make up a new list as well if I wanted to. I can either save and stay on the search, or I can save and manage the list as well. Here I am, my community songbook list. Here's the song that I just reported. So for example, let's assume that these maybe 10 or so songs are the songs that I have in my supplemental hymnal. Just because I have those 10 printed doesn't mean that I'm using all 10 of those every week, right? I'm just going to report the ones that I'm actually using. So maybe it's these two for this specific week. Report all selected. I indicate the week, I indicate the services, and I'm going to go ahead and view the report. So now you'll see that we're creating a really robust mass here. Listed for November 8th, here's all the songs that we're using. We use this extra all are welcome for that 5 o'clock service. And then I'll draw your attention to this blue Save Report button. We live in a culture that encourages us to save, 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 save. So this is a feel-good button. When you click it, you'll see this green message pop up, success report saved successfully. However, it doesn't really do anything. There's a little bit of humor for you. If the music is listed here underneath your managed report, it is available for you in your reporting history, all right? The save button is just a feel-good button, all right? Kathy, what kind of questions do we have coming up over the concept of reporting and downloading and lists?
Sure. Well, not with lists in particular, but question about manual submission and reporting, if you're going to address that. Lisa in Phoenix submitted a title for manual submission for this coming weekend. She knows it's copyrighted by one of our member publishers, and her church is going to be using the title for the next 6 weeks. Her specific question was wondering if she needs to use the manual submission form for each of those weeks.
Great question. So in this specific case, the manual submission process, let's say we're looking for an All Are Welcome. That's none of the versions that are here. So if you know that there's a specific member publisher that we work with and they have a song that you want to use, but you're not finding it in our system, that's the purpose of the manual submission process. So if you scroll all the way down, you'll see this blue button here called Manually Submit a Song. Anything that you had typed in is already going to be there. The manual submission process is used very, very, very sparingly. I can't emphasize enough how sparingly this process is. When the website was essentially created back in 2004, there was no way for all of the publishers to add all of their songs in the entire history of their catalogs. So what they did is they allowed customers to be able to submit songs to build up the catalog more organically. Every once in a while, though, there still is a song that's out there that isn't a part of our service. So by you filling out this form, it goes to the publisher for them to be able to review and then either reject for a specific reason or accept it onto your report. So if you're worried about using it for those 6 weeks, you can add more services in, but I don't necessarily think that's necessary. I would just keep it for the 1 week at the 3 services that you know that you're using it for. And then when you submit the song, you'll see it on your report for that week. And that way you can go back and edit it later if you want to. If it's rejected for any reason, you will get a message from the publisher indicating why. They're usually pretty good about putting in specific reasons in case it's something that's more nuanced.
Okay.
What other questions do we have?
Sure. We have a question about, Anna in Jackson, Michigan is asking about figuring out the last time someone else in her license reported. I think she's a sub-user and wondering where she has to catch up from as far as reporting that's been done for the past few months or so.
Yeah, that's a great question. So if you click on My Account and then Report Usage, you'll be able to see the list of that quarterly period that I was talking about, the 12 weeks in the past and the 6 weeks into the future. So you can click here and see if there's anything that's missing. You'll also notice, just a side note here, these say 0 reported titles, but they have check marks next to them. That's because I have indicated by clicking on this box and then scrolling down, selecting an action, and I'm marking that there's nothing to report. So when I click that there's nothing to report, you'll see that it changes to a black check mark as well. I'm telling the system that we didn't use anything that week. That way, either someone internally in your organization knows, you know, oh, that week's all on the up and up. There's no problems. We're all set there. We just didn't happen to use anything, which is entirely possible. But it also delays any type of reporting reminder emails from us because we know that some of you only use the license a couple of times a year. So we're aware of that. And I just wanted to make maybe special mention of that. But in terms of downloading your actual reporting history, you can either click on View Past Reports and you can see them chronologically here. So I made a report in October of 18 and May of 18. You can also scroll down and see next page. You can see the very beginning of my reporting history, right? It goes all the way back to 16. If you wanted to download a copy of the 12-month reporting history, so this may be helpful for the folks that are kind of keeping tabs on all of this, whether that's your pastor or director of music or whatever it happens to be. You'll see it appears in your PDF reports and you can click that download button. I will note that it's not going to indicate who reported the title. It's not going to indicate, oh, Lisa reported this one and someone else reported this one, but you will be able to see whether it was reported or not.
Okay. Are you addressing podcast streaming licenses?
Yeah, I will say that because that is its own kind of animal, and there's a 45-minute presentation on that, I will direct you to the podcast streaming license webinar. So if you click on the blog, search the word webinar, podcast streaming, any of those words, it's going to come up for you. It was back in April of last year, and that's a 45-minute webinar with our IT specialist, Paul Ident. He is brilliant, and has really done, with his team, Jason McKinney as well, done a fantastic job on the actual building process of our website, the design process, the development process. So they helped us out with that webinar and kind of giving an understanding overview of the concept of podcasting and streaming. So if you're interested in getting more in depth with that, I would encourage you to take a look at that additional webinar, just because it is so, it's so dense, that information.
Sure.
There's two other things that I want to bring your attention to as we kind of get to the end of the presentation portion here, and we have time for some extra Q&A. There's a simple steps towards copyright compliance video. This is one of our most viewed videos of all time. And because of this, it has just become required education. And I want to pull it up for you here. If you want to watch it again later, simple steps towards copyright compliance, you can search the word copyright in the upper right-hand corner here. This is on the blog, news.onelicense.net. But this is about 3 or 4 minutes or so. Let's take a look at this together.
Hello, license holders. This is Brenna Cronin, General Manager of One License. Whether you are brand new in your position or just wanting to start the year on the right note, here are 4 simple steps that you can do today to ensure that your organization is copyright compliant for the coming year and beyond. Number 1, ensure that correct copyright and licensing information is listed on all materials that you reprint. This includes the title, composer, copyright year, and any other information included in the reprint box of the given song, as well as your One License reprint information. Be sure old company names are removed. Only One License should be listed, and not any reference to onelicense.net, Word of Life International, or Licensing Online. Be sure the phrase reprinted with permission under One License number, and insert your number, period, all rights reserved, period, is printed on your worship aids, bulletins, projection screens, YouTube videos, Facebook Lives, and anywhere else that reprinted or streamed music is used. Number 2, view your present and download a copy of your previous 12-month reporting history. From the Report Usage tab, account owners, sub-users, and group managers can review the current quarterly reporting period, meaning what titles have been submitted for 12 weeks in the past and 6 weeks into the future, as well as their legacy reports and 12-month histories. To review past reports or download a copy of your 12-month reporting history, scroll to the bottom of the page and click the appropriate link. This is a great way to audit your usage and hold your team accountable for anything missing. Number 3, destroy photocopies of music that you find. Go through file cabinets, old bookshelves, and even pay a visit to that dusty old storage room. Non-congregational music that was photocopied without the express consent of the publisher is illegal and can carry debilitating fines. Even if you didn't photocopy the music yourself, if your church or organization is in possession of or distributes illegal copies, you could be faced with a claim of copyright infringement. Before destroying the music, take note of the titles, composers, and publishers of the pieces so you can contact them for legal octavos or versions. Protect your organization. Prioritize this task. Number 4, confirm that your category size correctly matches your average weekly attendance. Every organization that has a license with us is set into an average weekly attendance category. This category indicates the range of people you have attending your services. These ranges ensure that whether you have a dip in summer attendance and a spike around the holidays, or if you have traveling college students or snowbirds, your organization will be covered regardless of the season. You can view your current category from the Licenses tab under My Account. Visit the Options and Prices page to see the range of categories and make sure that your organization is in the right one. Typically, you can communicate increases or decreases when your invoice is up for renewal. If your category change is significant, please contact our office and we can assist in prorating your account. So in summary, copyright compliance in 4 simple steps that you can achieve today. Number 1, display correct copyright and licensing information. 2, view and download your reporting history for auditing. 3, destroy photocopied music. And 4, confirm your category size. Thanks for taking a few minutes to review this information. I hope you feel empowered to follow up with your team on these 4 important steps to ensure that your organization is copyright compliant this year and beyond.
Thanks for taking the time to watch that, folks. Again, super important information. You can find that by searching the word copyright from the blog news.onelicense.net. The last thing that I want to mention before we go to our Q&A here is the concept of group licenses. So if you are watching this video from an archdiocesan office or from a school district office or something like that, the concept of a group license might be something that's really beneficial for you. So this is where there's one overarching umbrella organization. So let's say it's the Diocese of Burbank. Then underneath the Diocese of Burbank is all of the 20 or 30 different organizations that exist within it. So it's all of the different churches, it's all of the different, organizations, maybe schools that are part of that too, right? But it's all the different organizations that are under the umbrella of the Diocese of Burbank. So what happens when you do that is you're eligible for a discount. And because of that discount, you have more ability to control the accountability of your organizations. So there's one invoice, which is really helpful. Just the diocese will get an invoice. That invoice will include a discount most of the time. And then you have that ability to hold those organizations accountable. So visit the groups section. You can review this. How do I know if a group license is a good fit for my organization? There's a little bit about the onboarding process. There's a significant, both on my end and on your end, administrative undertaking that happens when a group license is created. These are typically invoices in the thousands when that happens. So there's certainly some reason to think that it's a better fit for some organizations and not for others. Talks about the ongoing management of your group license, and then also the ability to take a look at those welcome packets, download reporting histories, etc. So if a group license is a good fit for your organization, go ahead and shoot us an email. We're happy to chat with you about that. It is a rather new feature as of October of last year officially, and it's something that we're really, really excited about. I mean, the things that we're hearing about people being on the same page with copyright compliance, no issues in their diocese. I mean, it's amazing when there's someone who's able to spearhead that effort. So Kathy, I'll turn it over to you for more general Q&A as we begin to wrap up our time here. Please feel free to ask maybe specific questions about either the 2 things that I just mentioned or if there's anything that I need to go back to on the website.
Sure. If we could review one of the most common questions by phone and email is people concerned about their hymnal not being listed in the hymnal resource tab and what they should do. Why is it not listed there? How do they figure out what's covered?
Yeah, so again, that's the process of the member publisher and their own level of participation. So we're not a hymnal specific service, we're a title and copyright specific service. So just because you don't see your specific hymnal here doesn't mean that the titles from it aren't covered. 9 times out of 10, search for the title, you'll see the title come up, but having it linked to the hymnal is a wholly other administrative job that has to happen. So some participate in that process and some member publishers don't.
Okay. We do have a question from William in Vancouver about Canadian checks and payments, that it's shown in our system as paid but not debited from his bank account. Could you explain that a little?
Yeah, and that just has to do with international, the banking process of those international checks. So we accept checks from anywhere in North America, but not outside of North America. And the process of that looks just like sending in a US check. We receive it in the mail, our accounting team processes it, it's posted to your account, etc. But the actual clearing of the bank takes a little bit longer because it is an international check. So they're processed differently. So you may see that it shows up on your statement as paid a solid week, 2, maybe even 3, depending on the bank, before it actually clears your account. If you have any questions about that, please do reach out to us. But typically, that's the only reason why there would be a delay is because of the actual bank processing times.
Okay, and then a question from a school in Ohio. they only have Mass once a month and are asking if they can report at the end of the school year.
No. No, you can't. And I'm sorry that it's that way, but unfortunately not. At that point, you're in violation of your license terms. And the necessity of reporting as you use the piece of music. So I do recommend that you report at very least quarterly. So if you want to think about reporting in December for everything you've used for the school year so far, and then if you want to report before spring break, and then if you want to report before graduation, that may be a better fit for you, but certainly not just once a year. Okay, great. Looks like that's the end of our Q&A. Thank you folks for joining us today. It was really, really nice to see such active, conscious participation. So thank you for that. If for whatever reason we did not answer your question, or if you didn't have a chance to answer your question, a chance to ask a question, excuse me, feel free to email us. Again, info@onelicense.net. We're happy to help you at any time. Again, from our entire team, we're very appreciative that you took the time and attention to this important information. We really hope that it helps you provide dynamic worship with your congregation. We are active church congregants and music ministers ourselves, so we understand how important all of this is, and we're certainly very, very in touch with all of the goings-on of music ministry. So if there's anything we can ever do for you, please reach out, info@onelicense.net. We sincerely appreciate your time, and from your Chicago One License team, our very best to you and your ministry. Have a great day.